get rolling, so if all the wayward students can come out and sit in the seats, including the school board. My assistant moderator. Good morning. This is the 2012 Goffstown School District Deliberative Session. I'm Jim Raymond, the school moderator. It's nice to see you all here. Thank you for coming. We promise you an interesting morning and a very short morning if you decide to do it that way. We are fortunate to have again this year, thanks to Josh, the Goffstown High School Music Department to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and then the National Anthem. So if you all rise with me. Now we'll do the pledge. You'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. You know, when you go to an auction and you raise your hand or scratch your eye and the auctioneer thinks you made a bid, well, I turned to Josh to make sure he was ready, and he thought that was the cue, and I apologize. We'll work on those hand signals next time. As usual, to open the meeting, I want to recognize the citizens of Goffstown and staff and others who make significant contributions of their time for the town and for this meeting. First, I'd like to introduce the school board. I'm going to ask, you don't have to stand because you're all down here in the plain sight, but raise your hand. Phil Pancoast, the chair, had to be, I don't know exactly what, but he had to be away on a very short basis. So we've been scrambling to fill in his name on places. Diane McCarthy, Keith Allard, Hank Boyle, Laurie Cloutier, excuse me, Jenny McKinnon, Kent Nolan, not here. These are Jennifer Thoreau, Suzanne Tremblay, not here. And then we have teacher representatives, Peggy Zola, Mary Grassett, Jeannie Roy, and the student representative, Megan Dodge, if she's here. I've always expressed amazement that a student has time to go to school board and to be a student. So, also, I want to recognize the members of the Budget Committee. If you're here, please stand when I list your names. Dan Cloutier, the chair. William Bates. Ivan Bolivo. John Burt. Guy Karen. Richard Meany. I should apologize in advance. This is my annual butchering of the names. You can speak to me crossly afterwards. Elizabeth Drubel, close. Brian Lewis, Chucker Hansen, Phil Kendall, Lisa Jukes, and then there are appointed representatives, Scott Gross from the Board of Selectmen, Steve Fournier, an alternate, Richard Fletcher from the Goffstown Village Water District, and Sue Tremblay is the school board representative. Thank you to that group. I also want to recognize the school administration. Again, if you're sitting up front, raise your hand. If you're out in the audience, please stand. Stacy Buckley, the superintendent. Brian Balke, the assistant superintendent. Mary Claire Berry, assistant superintendent. Raymond Labora, the business manager. Carol Kilmister, who's the human resources director. Frank McBride, the Goffstown High School principal. Jim Hunt, Mountain View Middle School. David Bosque, Bartlett Elementary School. Suzanne Hiska, the Maple Ave principal. And Leslie Doster, the Glen Lakes School principal. Thank you to that group. Sitting to my right are the brains behind the outfit. They pulled the string for me. Fred brought this to hit me with when I get out of line. Fred Platt, the assistant moderator, and Joanne Duffy, the school district clerk. We're also fortunate to have with us Lou D'Alessandro, our state senator, who is sitting over there. I'd like to welcome Lou. We appreciate his coming to these meetings. I have to tell a Lou story, just to put this in context. I work in Concord. I go from my office past between the State House and the Legislative Office building to the Y at lunchtime. I pass by, Lou is standing out on the sidewalk talking to somebody else. I stop and say, hello, Lou, because he's my senator. Don't say anything else about me. He introduces me to the person he's talking to. Within 2 seconds, I'd forgotten that person's name. He then turns to the other person, without my saying a word, and says, this is Jim Raymond. He is the Goffstown school moderator. And I say, how does he know that? That's why he does what he does, and I do what I do. But thank you, Lou. The school district meeting, although it's become a deliberative session, is still a community event. It's time for us to come together and recognize people who have made contributions to our school district. We have, the school board gives out 2 annual awards, the JHS Noteworthy Parents and the Dreamkeeper Award and the Cornerstone Award. Ginny McKinnon will first give the Dreamkeeper Award. Thank you.
Goffstown School Board wishes to recognize exceptional service to our school district. To this end, the Dreamkeeper Award has been established. It is designed to recognize people or organizations that have truly gone the extra mile to make the Goffstown dream of providing superior education a reality. Just some background information. In Goffstown, we don't have pay for play or pay for our co-curricular activities. where parents could merely write out a check and send it into the school district and have their responsibility taken care of. In Goffstown, we have parents in booster clubs who come forward, and instead of just paying their money like they do in some school districts, they come in and they do volunteer hours, and they probably generate much more funds than we would with our pay your $100 and that's the end of your responsibility. Because of this practice that we have here, we have many booster clubs who come in and donate amazing amounts of hours and generate thousands and thousands of dollars that taxpayers do not have to pay. And to that end, our students end up with many more things than we could ever ask the taxpayers to fund. So it's very important, and it is my great honor to this year give the Dreamkeeper Award to the noteworthy parents. The noteworthy parents were presented with a concert piano, a baby grand concert piano, which we have had to in the past rented for our performances here at Goffstown High School. And if you've ever been to any, they're amazing. The Phantom of the Opera, which we did recently, was first in New Hampshire. No other school district in New Hampshire has ever tried to do that because it's such a difficult performance, and we actually did it. This year, they got funds together and bought a baby grand concert piano. Was offered to the community at an unbelievable price because someone wanted the students to be able to benefit from it. I'd like the people from the noteworthy parents, Dorcas Duplo, Sherry Hyberg, Marcia Trexler, and Joyce Welton to come down and accept the award. This is for you to keep with your organization, whoever would like to take it. And we do keep a plaque in the school, and we have GHS Noteworthy Parents 2012 as a recipient of that award. Noteworthy Parents have been around since the mid-1990s doing this kind of work for us. So thank you.
Each year, the school district awards the Cornerstone Award in recognition of outstanding achievements by staff members and community members working within our schools. The education of our children is truly a team effort of staff, of parents, and the community. It's well documented that there is a direct correlation between the level of parental involvement within a school and the level of success the school experiences. This year's recipient has exemplified outstanding volunteer service within our school district for over 12 years now. During that time, she's logged literally thousands of hours working within our schools. She's helped out in the classroom, shelved books, made photocopies, swept the floor, greeted parents, organized children. Truly, whatever it was that needed to be done, she did it. She's also served in several leadership capacities, most recently having served 3 years as the president of Maple Avenue's PFT, and currently serving as the Vice President of the Mountain View Partnership. No matter what capacity she's acting in, one thing is very certain. Her presence is very positive and very supportive of the children, the staff, the parents, and therefore the community as a whole. It is my pleasure to present this year's Cornerstone Award to Angela Martinez. And she couldn't be here today, but accepting on her behalf is her husband, Jose Martinez. To sign it. And then we have the plaque for the Cornerstone, in which her name is displayed, which is on display at the SAU at the school. Thank you. Next up, we'd like to recognize Kent Nolan, who was able to join us today, for his years of service on the school board. Kent has served 6 years on the school board, during which time he has made immeasurable contribution to our town and in the support of our school district. Kent, thank you very much.
Thank you. I also left out, Kathy Ball is sitting up in the audience, town clerk. I want to thank her for reminding me, as does the district, when my term is up, so I have to sign up again. It's not a political push. I just want to recognize the efforts that other people make. Let's spend a few minutes, although most of you have heard this drill before, on what we're doing here. This Goffstown, in its infinite wisdom, adopted the ballot referendum system, or the Official Ballot Act, or SB2, which, unlike the traditional town and school meeting, where all things were acted at this meeting, here we debate, deliberate, discuss, and can amend articles, or warrant articles, but every warrant article, as amended, then goes to the official ballot, which is voted on in writing in an election procedure on the traditional town and school meeting date, which is the second Tuesday in March. So when we walk away today, all we're doing is putting, one of the purposes is to determine the final form of each warrant article that will appear on the ballot to be voted on by the town on election day. So we discuss, debate, can amend, and explain, but we don't take any final actions. If this group, we'll call the legislative session, does nothing to amend, the articles will appear as written in the warrant on the ballot with any editorial changes that have to be made if they're find some errors. But so if we do nothing, and we're not compelled to, we move on and it'll appear as written. The procedure we use is to bring anything forward for discussion. It will be done on motion. So we'll have the school board move each article for discussion and second it. The school board will then have an opportunity to present an explanation. If the budget committee wishes to express the views of the committee, I'll recognize Dan Cloutier as the chair of the budget committee, and it doesn't have to, but it can present the budget committee's views. Then we open it up for discussion from the audience. We will limit discussion to 4 minutes, give or take. Give some people a license, but we have to put some limit on it. And then if you're coming back up to 2 minutes, roughly, it's not a strict clock, but we have to keep things moving. At the end of which, if there's no motion made, we move on to the next article. If you wish to make a motion to amend, it must be in writing. Fred has the forms, so come up, get the form, fill it out, give it to Fred, and then we'll make the motion orally, but we need it in writing from you. And then we'll act on on the amendment. Now, I will only permit one motion to amend on the floor at a time. Sometimes you go to the amendments and you end up with 4 different things stacked up. I'm not smart enough to keep track of that. So if you have an amendment, we'll vote on it and then we'll move on. Now, if an amendment fails, it doesn't preclude you from making a second motion to amend. I will not permit motions to amend that are not substantive. They're not a substantive change. I'm going to exercise my discretion as moderator and not permit them. You all should have a voting card. Turn around. This is your authorization to vote. So on an oral vote, you don't need to show it. If there's a standing vote, please raise it. And if there's a request for a written ballot on anything, this is your check-in. You will not use the supervisors of the checklist. Same procedure as last year. If we have a written request for a request for a written ballot, there'll be 2 tables. You can go to either one, whichever has the shortest line, except if you're like me at the supermarket, that will end up being the longest line. You'll show your card, they'll give you a ballot, you'll mark the ballot and put it in the box, okay? Please, if you have not, put your names on your voting card for 2 reasons. One, we've discovered people drop them. They lose them, and we know who you are. 2, it's a way to check who it is. I'm not worried about this group. We kind of know everybody, but please do that. So don't lose these. Yeah, if you find one, turn it in, Fred. Fred asked, yes, if you're leaving, yes, when you leave, please give it back to the checklist ladies. We want to make sure they don't swim around. There are some statutory provisions for procedure, the most important of which is a request for a secret ballot, if you want one, has to be made after the meeting opens in writing by 5 members present at the meeting. Fred has the form for doing that. So if you wish to make a request for a secret ballot, I'm not inviting it, but you have a statutory right to, you can see Fred. If you're going to speak, you may only speak if I recognize you. You are to address your comments to the moderator, me, or Fred if he's standing in for me. Not to individuals. This is not the state legislature. This is not Congress. I will not permit personal attacks, comments on people's motives. We are operating under the presumption that we are all citizens of Goffstown, acting for the benefit of Goffstown, however we see it, and people's individual motives are not subject to comment. We're going to stand that. And you may request from the boards through me, if you want to hear their position, but it's not cross-examination. You're not lawyers like I am where you can cross-examine. If the board or the individual wishes to respond, he or it may, but is not compelled to. So again, you address your comments to the moderator. That's just good parliamentary procedure. We have mics here and here, so if you come up and stand in line, I'll recognize you. Once we've beaten something enough, I'll either end the discussion or I'll accept a motion to call the questions. 2/3 votes, not debatable, but I want to make sure everybody's had a substantial opportunity to speak, but not an excessive one. Finally, the one motion I will accept from the floor, not from the microphone, is a motion to restrict reconsideration. This is a statutory procedure. After a vote has been taken, you make a motion to restrict reconsideration. It prevents the motion from coming forward again. In the good old days, as some of you remember, you'd vote on the dump truck early in the town meeting, everybody would go home, and then at 2 a.m. somebody would bring a motion to reconsider the vote. Well, only 3 people were left in the audience and they'd vote it back. Well, they've given us a way to prevent that, so at some point we can safely go home. Okay, does anybody have any questions on the procedure? Hearing none, let's dive into it. What I will do on each article, I'll read the article. I will not read it it again, unless somebody asks, but we can before we vote. I'll then ask the school board if it wishes to make a motion to bring it forward, and that will start the discussion. We don't have to read the introduction, so I'm not going to, unless somebody has a compelling need. It starts in the inhabitants too. We'll skip over that. Article 1 is required to go on the official ballot. It's the elections for moderator, school district treasurer, district clerk. Unless there's something compelling, we're going to not take any action on that because we can't amend it. We'll go right to Article 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to request that? Okay, there's been a request by the school board to do the operating budget first, and I'm going to permit that. So we're going to turn to Article 4, which is the general operating budget. Article 4. I will now read it. Shall the Goffstown School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted on the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $36,477,003. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $36,182,164, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Goffstown School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA Chapter 40, Section 13, subsections 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This warrant article, the operating budget article, does not include appropriations in any other warrant articles. This is a statutorily required text, under the Official Ballot Act. The amendments may address the amount of the expenditure, but not the text of the article otherwise. I understand Diane McCarthy will move. Okay, Keith Allen moves to bring forward. Jenny, are you? Jenny McKinnon seconds. Who's going to address this for the board? Okay, Keith Allen. Thank you.
I'd like to start off apologizing that Philip Pankos, who was going to be doing this presentation this morning, couldn't make it here today due to an unexpected work commitment. Is that better? All right, we're going to start off real quick with some budget numbers. As you noticed, our budget that we're asking for this year is $36,477,003. If that budget does not pass, and that budget has been approved by both the school board and the budget committee, not unanimously, but both committees have approved it. The default budget would then be, if it's not approved, $36,182,164. Our current budget is $88,000 over last year's budget. If you take a look back over the past 7 years, and it is in the handout, and I believe it's on page 2. You'll notice that our budget has been relatively flat over the past 7 years. Yes, it is page 2. The budget that we're proposing is one that is cost-effective and appropriate to educate the children of our community. The budget was designed to meet the needs of the students and challenge each and every one of them academically. This current budget provides for level maintenance of our current existing infrastructure. This budget does not provide for any advancement of our current curriculum or any improvements in our technology or any additional improvement outside of general maintenance. On page 3, you'll notice that our cost per to educate children is the 5th lowest in the state of New Hampshire. That's a remarkable number to be at. What's even more remarkable is if you look at our kneecap test scores, we're in the top 5 for the state of New Hampshire. We're competing and we're actively We are actively competing with other school districts that are spending somewhere in the 13, 14, even some of them as much as 16,000 per student to educate their children. And we're doing it for a fraction of that cost here in Goffstown. That has been the case for many, many years here. Also, our SAT scores are on the rise as well. I think we're seeing phenomenal results from our educators, from our administrators, from the board, from our superintendents, and from our children. So I hope that you would understand that this budget is a bare-bone budget for us. While it's not very much above default, every little dollar will help to help provide and further the education of our children. So I think you're seeing that we're obviously getting a very big bang for the buck. If you look at the remainder of our handout, you will also see information on how much lower our salaries are compared to other communities in the state. And you'll see our class sizes are larger than many other communities in the state. One of the ways that you can help lower your operating cost is increase your student class size. There are communities out there this year that are specifically doing that to help lower their cost of education in the community. This is something that Goffstown did years ago. We took advantage of that and we lowered our cost by increasing class sizes. We are very concerned that we cannot increase our class sizes any further and still see the type of results we're seeing with our children. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is, while our budgets have been relatively flat, what you're going to notice this year is a change in the revenue. We have historically been very conservative in estimating our revenue. And our revenue comes from various sources, federal grant, state funding, and from tuition from New Boston and Dunbarton. The Budget Committee had asked, or had questioned us and asked how can we resolve the issue of the fact that we're returning such a significant amount of money at the end of every year, mostly because of the fact that we got increased revenue, more revenue than we anticipated. So what we have done is we've really tried to calculate our revenue, especially on the tuition side, to be much more precise. So that's the reason why you're going to see a difference in the revenue side of things. Also, we're expecting less than $1 million. We're expecting about $1 million less in federal aid this year because of the economy. Just because less money comes in doesn't mean it's going to cost us less to educate our children. So the effect on the tax rate for the past years has been that we've actually, our portion has actually caused us the tax rate to go down for several years. And some of that has been from us spending a little bit less money every year. Some of it's been from increased revenue. 1 year, a significant amount was from the ORA funds. We had carefully used our ORA funds to make purchases that allowed us to reduce our operating budget and allowed us to return that money to the taxpayers rather than spend it on other projects in our school district. So this year, that's where you're going to see the difference. Past few years, several years, our effect on the tax rate is we actually lowered the tax rate. Some of you say, well, I didn't see that big of a difference. Well, there's a second portion to your tax rate, and that's the town side. And they had some increases that absorbed some of our decreases in the tax rate. I'm not saying that's wrong or anything. I'm just saying that's the case. And for us, we can't balance our budget by having a reserve fund. The selectmen under state statute can have a reserve fund that allows them to take some money out and put it into the revenue stream to help level off their tax rate. My understanding is they're proposing to do $1 million this year just for that effect. Unfortunately, school districts are not allowed to do that. We cannot, on our good years, put a little bit of money away and store it up for years in which the revenue might be down and we can add it in. So the school board respectfully requests that you support Article 4 and put forth the budget of $36,477,003. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to be heard on Article 4? Okay, I'm going to ask you, after I recognize you, please identify yourself. Your name is preserved for posterity in the minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bill Bates. I'm on Tibbetts Hill Road. I just had, for the benefit of myself and the group here, I was wondering, Keith, if you or one of the other committee members could just explain the difference between the anticipated tuition cost showing as being lower from the approved 11-12 budget and the, just quickly explain the other income. It's just under other. So the questions about tuition, this proposed versus last year, and the other income.
Sir, could you spell your last name, please? We didn't catch it. Spell your last name.
B-A-T-E-S.
Thank you. Okay, the school board, does it wish to respond to that? It doesn't have to, or can wait for other questions and then respond to them all at once? Okay, they're going to assemble, so are there any other questions or comments on the operating budget? You don't have to. You want to? Mr. Bates, they have a question. We don't normally get to give and take, but why don't you come back up to the mic so we can ask the question?
Yes. Oh, I was just going from the projected revenues paper, and just two things I had a question on. Under the category local revenue other than taxes, the 12-13 proposed shows a $6,500,000, which I know is probably an estimated amount, and why that is different from the 11-12 line next to it, or why you anticipate it to be less. And then the other one was just other income, which is just below, is the bottom line in that same category, is just an explanation of the other income showing at $42,000.
They told me 30 seconds will time it. Does anybody else have a real detailed questions? I hope not. Okay, I recognize Mr. Allen.
Sorry for the delay on that. We wanted to make sure we were correct in our answer. The difference between the $6.5 million proposed by the school board and the actual approved MS-24 for 2011 and 12 is approximately $376,000. The $6.5 million was based on what we anticipate for students coming in from New Boston and Dunbarton. We do expect a slight difference in the tuition numbers for next year. And the $42,000, previously we hadn't reported on a separate line, but primarily that's the money we received from selling parking permits at our school. So yes, at the high school, it's pay for park.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on Article 4? Seeing none, we'll finish that discussion and move back then to Article 2. Yes. Okay, made by Scott Gross. Is there a second? By motion to limit reconsideration. Mr. Nolan, just a second. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. You guys are the same. Mr. Kendall is seconding. A motion has been made to restrict reconsideration of Article 4. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now look at Article 2. Passage of this article shall override the 10% limitation imposed in this appropriation due to the non-recommendation of the Budget Committee to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,770,056 in parentheses gross budget for the purpose of construction, renovation, and equipment of the Maple Avenue Elementary School and at the Bartlett Elementary School, and for costs incidental and related to the foregoing purposes, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $15,060,599 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the school district officials to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Furthermore, to authorize the withdrawal of $344,970 from the Bartlett Capital Reserve Fund created for this purpose. Furthermore, to see if the district will raise and appropriate the balance of $364,487 for the purpose of addressing the first-year debt service obligation to be raised by taxation. This appropriation is in addition to warrant article number 4 on the operating budget, which we just discussed. Diane, are you moving this? Okay, Diane McCarthy moved to bring this forward for discussion. Hank Boyle seconded. Diane, I understand you're going to present.
Okay, warrant article 2. Warrant article 2 is asking voters for permission to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,770,056 for the renovation and construction of new classroom space at both Bartlett Elementary and Maple Avenue Elementary schools. This project has been something that the school board has been addressing for several years now. As many of you are already aware, both Bartlett Elementary and Maple Avenue Elementary, they've exceeded capacity for a good 10 years now. To manage the growth, portable learning spaces were purchased about 12 years ago at Bartlett and 9 years ago at Maple. Also, over the years, spaces such as closets and bathrooms have been repurposed to be used as offices and learning spaces. Still, class sizes have crept up and we're simply out of room at these schools. To tackle the issue, in 2008, the school board formed the Elementary Facilities Review Committee to investigate our feasible options. The group was comprised of school board members, members of the administration, and members of the public. They carefully considered our current and future enrollment trends, our current classroom space needs, our future classroom space needs, upgrades that we might need, as well as safety measures to secure the security of our schools. They looked at 6 different options involving Maple Avenue, Bartlett, and Glen Lake. One option that they looked at was adding on to Glen Lake School. And what they determined after careful consideration was that was not a cost-effective solution for our current situation. And in fact, the determination was that the most cost-effective, least expensive way to handle our current enrollment trends was to add on and renovate Bartlett and Maple Avenue schools. In March 2010, the voters approved the use of impact fees to fund the architectural and engineering study required to move this project to the next step. A committee was once again formed of school board members, members of the public, and the administration to draw up some plans. During the course of their work, they once again paid careful attention to our current and future enrollment needs, contemporary education standards, as well as cost efficiency. That work is now done, and we have the plans in hand. If you haven't seen them yet, please take a moment to do so. They're right over the door. You would have seen them when you came in. They include the construction of 10 new classrooms at each elementary school and upgrading existing electrical, plumbing, and technology infrastructures, as well as heating, ventilation, security, and energy efficiency improvements at each school. So why now? It's an important question. As I said before, the issue of space in our schools is not something that is new to us. We have been working on addressing this for years now. In doing so, the school board did make a conscientious decision to protect the tax impact by postponing any building project until after the Mountain View bond was retired. That happened last year. Additionally, our bond rates are at an all-time low, which offers us the opportunity for significant cost savings. We recently saw that effect when the school board recently refinanced another bond that saved the town over $600,000 in interest over the next 10 years. The same is holding true for construction firms. Many are in need of business, which puts us in a favorable position to negotiate savings. Again, we've seen that now with the building committee. When we worked on the completion of the architectural and engineering studies, our original cost estimates were $900,000 to get that work done. We were able to get it done for about $350,000. So that really worked to our benefit. That's it in a nutshell. Both our elementary schools have exceeded these capacities for years. The existing space is not sufficient to meet our current needs, and additional new housing projects are planned in town. We recently had a new housing project back behind Rite Aid that increased our student count in Bartlett. Planning board, as I understand, is looking at another 48-unit apartment complex. That could bring anywhere from 28.8 new students to 124, given some experience on how many students that brings in. We know we need a long-term solution. Plans for each school are available from any board member, committee member, or administrator. We'd all be happy to speak to you about it. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Does anybody wish to be heard on Article 2? Mr. Cludier, you're busy tapping. I don't want to pass over to him. Yeah, it is. Mr. Cludier is the chair of the Budget Committee, so I'm going to recognize their opportunity to speak, but they're not held in this debates.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just had 3 questions. The questions, the things that I thought about, but I've also heard from other people in town, which is why I'm bringing them up. Looking for some quick questions and answers here. I don't think anybody can dispute the fact that the elementary facilities, both of them, are operating in capacity. So there certainly is a need. But I'm curious about the upon building completion, as far as if it's handling existing capacity or it's going to satisfy our needs with the addition of the classrooms. Is the idea here that upon completion we're able to have the room available for all the children that are in the classes, and we'd be moving them around into the new classrooms, right? Or are we also satisfied?
I'm going to remember, direct your questions to me, and I ask you to ask all 3 questions, and then they can formulate a response.
That's fine, thank you. So the idea here is that we're going to move the current population around in the new classrooms. That said, are we also trying to solve a classroom size issue too? That was the first question. Second question has to do with the fact that I think a lot of people in town are concerned, obviously with costs and the impact on tax rate having to do with the economy. So I'm wondering if I can get an answer on, as best as you can tell right now, I know it's always subject to change, based on the current population we're trying to build classrooms for, that because we're satisfying an immediate need for capacity's sake, that we don't anticipate the hiring of new teachers or support staff. This is being done for the purpose of satisfying the immediate need, and there are no anticipated new hires of either teacher or support staff for the new classes. And then my last question, and this was the one that I've heard from a lot of people on, and this has to do with the current contracts that are in place for New Boston and Dunbar, and the fact that there's a real concern that in a year, one or possibly both could potentially make a decision to go elsewhere. And if that's the case, because of all the planning you did, have you thought about how this might change the need we have? If we have less students, tuition students coming to Goffstown, how does that change our needs? And have we thought about that? Thank you.
Thank you. School board, you're not compelled to, but if you'd like to respond to those questions, you may. Mary McCarthy.
So the first question asked whether or not we were looking to address the issue of class size with this project, and yes, in fact, we are. As far as meeting the needs of the current population, you were asking if we anticipated new hires. I couldn't say that we wouldn't anticipate new hires. We do have a situation at Maple Avenue Elementary right now where we have 5 fourth grade classes that are averaging about 27 students per. That is very large. We are unable to address that class size with our given space. Even if we could hire a teacher, we have no room to put the class without purchasing a new portable. So certainly when that construction was completed and we had that extra classroom, it's reasonable to expect that we would be looking to hire a new fourth grade teacher. And then you asked about the area agreement, the impact that of Dunbarton and New Boston. They don't tuition students to our elementary schools. The Dunbarton students and the New Boston students come, they're grades 7 through 12. They're not K through 4, whereas Bartlett and Maple, they are 1 through 4 currently. So it's not going to affect the population of our schools, of these schools in question.
I'm going to see if there's anybody else in this debate. So remember, on the second time around, we're going to limit the time. Does anybody else wish to be heard? Let's see. I see. Well, this lady over here, and then this gentleman, and then Mr. Gross, and Mr. Bates. We can come back around, but and the esteemed Langwood also wants to be heard. Okay, so why don't you be after Mr. Gross? Okay, remember, state your name, please.
Sure. My name is Mary Downs. That's spelled D-O-W-N-E-S. I'm a parent here in town. I have a son in Maple Ave and a daughter in high school. My daughter went through Maple Ave and was in one of the girls in 4th grade. It is not a good learning environment. It's hard to believe that those have been around for a decade and we still haven't replaced them. I also work for the state of New Hampshire as an energy efficiency specialist, and I have been overseeing a lot of stimulus money being invested in towns and communities across the state as well as in state buildings. And I can affirm that this is an extremely good time to borrow in terms of cost effectiveness, and also an extremely good time to hire contractors to build. The economy will eventually be getting better, and with it the prices of this absolutely eventually needed and needed now work will be going up. So this is a good time to be borrowing and be paying back over the course of time and keeping our payments low. So I'd like to support both, support this article for those reasons, and also for the very important reasons that our kids aren't getting the service that they need, or the environment that they need to be learning well. And I speak from experience, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator. Josh Douglas, Center Street. Douglas, D-O-U-G-L-A-S. So I guess the first question that I have, Mr. Moderator, is do we have an expected growth rate, and how long will these 10 classrooms actually facilitate growth at these schools? The second question I have is, do we know what we believe that those properties, both Bartlett and Maple Ave, are worth? And is there some sort of possibility to actually have even a better growth rate if we combine the two facilities in one elementary?
Just to clarify, when you say value of the property, do you mean the use as a school or tear down a Walmart or something?
I mean, if we actually sold those properties as revenue to bring in to build one facility.
I'm not suggesting that. Okay. Board, do you want to answer that now, or do you want to see what other questions come out and do it all at once if we want some time to? Okay, well, they're going to look at that and then we'll come back, okay? Mr. Gross. Even if I pretend to know your name, you still have to tell us who you are.
Scott Gross, Range Road, Goffstown.
Because Ms. Kendall is our
And I speak on my own behalf, not of the Board of Selectmen or the Budget Committee. Going back to Mr. Bates's question, recognizing that Dunbarton and New Boston do not tuition students to the elementary schools, they do tuition to Mountain View Middle School. Can you let us know what the current enrollment is at Mountain View Middle School? And if Dunbarton and New Boston were to go elsewhere, what would you subtract from that number? What would be the end result of students? I think the question that Mr. Bates was maybe going to was, if that were to happen and you were to have a reduced population at Mountain View Middle School, would the board then reconsider sending 4th graders to Mountain View?
Okay, thank you. Board, I'm going to tell me when you're ready to respond, but if you want to gather more questions. Okay, so they're going to get some hard numbers for you, so I forget who is next. Yes, sir.
My name is Alan Dayton. I live at 82 Hillcrest Road. I'm also the chairman of your planning board, and I'm well aware of the future growth of this community. this community is going to continue to grow. It's not going to stop. We see it as at the board right now. And I think we have to address it in advance, not wait until it happens. And there is a need. My wife and I did take the opportunity to go to visit both of these schools this past week. We met some of the board members there. Both of my kids have gone through those schools. Now one is in high school, one is still in Mountain View. And I think it's long overdue that something has to happen to these two schools. Thank you.
My name is George Curran, and my wife and I have 5 children that have gone through the schools. Our youngest is at Bartlett, and we are really in favor of the addition of Bartlett. And I just question, is it going to be big enough? I heard that there was a 48-unit condo unit development coming, and even the plans that you have, is that big enough to absorb the coming wave of more people? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take one more and then we'll answer the questions. Yes, sir.
My name is Morris Demers from Tanager Road. I just would like to ask, has any consideration been given to building a 3rd elementary school rather than enlarging existing schools? I know Bartlett has a very small footprint as far as acreage is concerned.
Thank you. You ready? Okay. Ms. McCarthy.
Do my best here.
All right, regarding the expected growth rate, can't give you a hard number on that, but we just heard our planning board tell us we were going to continue to grow. We did take that into account, the group that got together 2008, their expected growth rate. I was really adamant at the table, because I've served on this committee, that we needed this to be a long-term solution. I really like them all, but I don't want to be back at the table in 10 years trying to expand again these schools. But no, this is what we feel to be our best possible solution to handle our current needs as well as our future needs. While I'm on that subject, we were asked about the possibility of a 3rd elementary school, and certainly there was that consideration of adding on to Glen Lake School. That is not something we're looking to move forward at that time. I would imagine it is a viable option when we renovate Bartlett and Maple, get them going where they need to go. I suppose we do still have that, but no, we don't have the land available or the space available to just close down Bartlett and Maple and build another giant elementary school somewhere else. Scott, you asked about the hard numbers. The population at Mountain View Middle School I currently have at 702 students, with 190 of whom are coming from Dunbarton or New Boston. Theoretically, yes, you could make Mountain View 4 through 8 school, but honestly, I don't know that that is the best solution for our students, to put 4 through 8 in one house. If we were pushed, sure. But the question is this what the town wants with their 4th graders? Did I answer all the questions? I could not answer as to the value of our properties. What's that? Which I don't know off the top of you. Yeah, Keith was saying we have the insurance appraisals, but truly I don't have that information for you here and now. We could get it at the SAU for sure.
If there's detailed questions, they don't come with everything. I think you're free to ask later. It doesn't have to be at the public meeting on their public group. They'll give that to you. Let's see, anybody else? Because I said Mr. Bates could have a chance, and you'd want another.
I just wondered if they knew it was big enough to absorb.
Okay, when they come around. Mr. Bates, did you want to be heard one more time?
I think Chairman Gross, I misspoke when I asked the question the way I did. I think Selectman Gross probably defined the question. I would only ask if we're talking 180, 190 students from both New Boston and Dunbarton, how that split between the two is. And again, if at all possible, I know it's hard to do right here, right now, is, what kind of classroom space, those those 180 or 90 students occupy, because to Diane's point, that may not be the optimal way to accommodate space for the town, but in the short run, it might be a viable option. And when we're trying to spend smart and in light of the current economy, that is a viable option if Dunbarton or New Boston were to decide not to
Okay,
back
thank
up
you.
to another agreement. Thank you.
I'm going to recognize this gentleman, and then,
How you doing? My name is Anthony DeFranco, 637 Blackford Road. And in the interest of full disclosure, I am on the building committee, so I do have a lot of knowledge of the project. And I'd just like to say, everyone's talking about the 48 new apartments. Everybody seems to be assuming that everyone's that moves into these apartments are gonna start off with their children in first grade. That may not be the case. They may be starting off in middle school, they may not have children, who knows? So when somebody asks if this is adequate for the future, I do believe that it is. I think it'd be wrong for us to assume that we're gonna have a huge influx of elementary school kids. Are we gonna have some? Absolutely. Is every one of those 48 apartments going to be part of that? I don't believe so. My second point, I was with Principal Bosque the other night and doing the tour of the facility, and he brought up some things that I did not realize. One of the special needs rooms, children are getting special help. There are 4 teachers in one specific classroom because they do not have enough space. So we have 4 teachers trying to work with children that need special attention. And you have 4 simultaneous things happening at the same time. These kids need a classroom, they need their own space. I can't even imagine having a short attention span with 4 different things going around trying to learn. As a parent, I would be appalled at that. I have a daughter in 2nd grade, and if she needs special attention, I want her to have the absolute best she can possibly get. The teachers are doing the best job they can, but I really think, as a parent, that my child, if in that situation, would certainly develop at a much faster and better rate, having a classroom that was structured just for that. Again, just use your hearts when you vote, and think about that. If you had a child that had a learning disability, and you had 4 simultaneous things happening, there's going to be no attention span. You're going to be looking all around. Put yourself in that child's shoes or that parent's shoes. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to be heard who hasn't? I think Mr. Gross is itching to come back up since he's spoken. Just so you haven't been heard on this. I lost track.
I've already been heard. So.
Okay, so anybody else want to be heard on this who hasn't spoken? You may come up later, just don't want to cut you off. Okay, Mr. Gross.
Do you want to repeat my name again, or?
No.
Good for the
No,
record.
it's a nightmare that keeps coming back.
All right, Jim. Okay.
I gave you that.
Just questioning, I was part of the kindergarten initiative many years ago, and the plan was that it was designed so that it could be expanded to an elementary school. And going back to what Mo said earlier, the footprint of the Bartlett School is very small. And I will also, why wasn't it a viable option to expand onto the Glen Lake School? Knowing that typically renovations are more expensive than new construction, why wasn't it a viable option? And the second point that I'd like to make is that I have toured Bartlett and Maple. They are in desperate need. Excuse me, but I just would like an answer as to why wasn't the expansion of Glen Lake viable.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. And then we'll see if the school board has any answers.
So the follow-up question that I have is...
You have to reintroduce yourself.
Oh, I do, but he doesn't, okay.
Yeah.
I'm Josh Douglas, Center Street. My second question is, what is the current, so I heard high class sizes at Maple Ave. I have children at Maple Ave and I've gone through the school, and I understand those schools need to be improved. well, what is the current average class size at Maple Ave and Harley? And with those 10 classrooms that are being added to each facility, what is the expected class size that is going to be in place at that point in time? Because I'm also concerned that 10 classrooms, we expand them out, you know, the average class size still might be above the average for New Hampshire. And I'd like to know what that is.
Okay, there's been a number of questions asked. So I'll give the school board a chance to respond to the extent they can, recognizing some of these are very specific and they may not have that information now.
I'll start with the last question since that's the one that is fresh in my mind. You were asking for class sizes. I have in front of me the projected class sizes for next year. If you would like them, in grade 1 for Bartlett 17, Maple 19, grade 2 for Bartlett 17, Maple 17, grade 3 Bartlett 17, Maple 19, grade 4 Bartlett 26, and 25 in Maple. I think it's important to note, particularly in Bartlett, that 1922 wing, we're looking at about 700 square foot classrooms, and to put 26 children in there and their teacher and their desks and whatnot, it's a really cozy fit. We do exceed the state average class sizes on all fronts for our elementary schools. I wish those numbers could roll off my tongue. Right now they can't, but I know we do. Did that answer your question?
Well, I was actually curious as we add in.
Okay, Jim, thank you. We also had a question. I understand we were looking for the specifics between Dunbarton students and New Boston students at Mountain View. I have 61 shown for Dunbarton, 129 for New Boston. A couple details that are important to note too, as far as the area agreement goes, we're 3 years out. So even if these changes do occur, they're not going to occur for 3 years. And these needs really are now. These kids don't get another shot at grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. The other interesting thing to note about the population of Mountain View, these are 7th and 8th graders. They have different curriculum, they have different classes. As much as it is going to decrease the population at Mountain View, I'm not sure that it's as much as you think, because we still need to offer 7th grade level courses with their electives and a variety. So it's not gonna just open up this magical space for our 4th graders. Scott's question about the viability of Glen Lake, you're absolutely right, Scott. Glen Lake was built with the idea of adding onto it at a future time. And that still can be added onto at a future time. I was not personally on that committee that made that decision, and Mr. Kendall right here was. I know their findings were that we could put a lot of money into adding on to Glen Lake School, and we were still left with the need for the elementary, Bartlett and Maple, and they still needed their renovations. May I yield the floor to Phil since you Okay, I think I'm done. Did I do all my questions? I know, they're not going on.
Yeah. Gibson. You have to do that. Okay, after this lady, then you, and then.
Hi, Michelle Romney, Tanta Drive. My question is, with the 10 classrooms at each of the schools, my understanding is that they're not adding 10 new classes for every building. My understanding, or I guess my question is, what exactly will those classrooms be for? What's the purpose of each of those classrooms? I know Maple Ave, the music and the art programs are on a cart right now and have been for 7 years, I think, with the exception of 1 year. So my question is, what will those 10 classrooms be used for?
Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth DeBroy. I live on First Ave. I actually don't have a question, I have a comment. I'm also the chair of the Historic District Commission. I understand from talking to some of the people on the building committee that it was not a viable option to preserve the 1922 portion of the Bartlett School. If this project passes and it goes forward, I just urge the school board to work with the town, the HDC, and the Goffstown Historical Society to allow us to fully document that building before it is torn down. We would want to photograph it and get as much information out of it before the wrecking ball comes in.
Thank you.
Phil Kendall, 37 Kimberly Lane. I was on the, whatever the name was back in 2008 for the elementary committee, looking at it. And I was also on the kindergarten committee. And when we did lay out Glen Lake, we did discuss the expansion. And on the capital reserve, there's been an elementary expansion project on there for a long time, and that was one of the sites that we're looking at. When we started getting into this, we started doing our pros and cons and costs analysis, and basically it came down to this. To build a new school at Glen Lake, I'm going to use round numbers here, was about $16 million. But we still need to do renovations at both Bartlett and Maple Ave. And they had to be done roughly at the same time. When you added that up, you got in the $19 million range to do a new elementary at Glen Lake plus renovations at Bartlett and Maple. By doing the additions and renovations at Maple and at Bartlett, we were able to bring that number down to the $16 million, well, 15, whatever, like I said, round numbers. So it was a cost savings to do the renovations and additions at both Bartlett and Maple. And that was a decision that was made by the committee, brought to the school board, approved to where we're at today.
Thank you. Yeah. John, are you waiting to be heard too?
I'll hold up on both.
I appreciate that.
Structurally, this.
Yeah, good work.
My name is Tracy Bond, 204 Norman Road. And I just want to make a comment that I have a son that was put up into Mountain View Middle School as a 4th grader before the trailers came. And I just want to say I think they were put up there before they should. The environment, it wasn't a great experience for him. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think it was successful. They were put in too big a school. They weren't, I think, socially, mentally ready for it. And it just wasn't a great experience for him. It was a bad year.
Thank you. Are there any further? Yes, somebody who I cannot say no to.
Jane Raymond, 336 Blackbrook Road, Goffstown. I just want to make a comment about the trailers. I think we're counting classrooms and we're forgetting that we're going to take the trailers out of the Maple Ave yard and put those children back in the building. And some of us who've been here for a while remember the last time we had trailers. And if you've watched what happens when children go from school out the door to the trailer and back, and those trailers have been there for a while. I'm losing track now how old they are. And the last time we had trailers, I think some of them are still around. One is down at the ball field, yes, thank you, and one is at the transfer station. I think it's holding the old recycling bins or something. So those are pretty worn out. Even the ones we have now are pretty worn out. So I think when you say 10 classrooms, you're taking an overcrowded situation and removing the trailers and putting the children in a school building where they really should be. So just remember that when you're thinking about the benefits of doing these renovations, which I fully support.
Darrell Lockwood, 246 Cambridgeville Road. There are a number of questions that I would feel remiss if I didn't try to share what I know. One of the things about the value of Bartlett School, back a number of years ago when the school district was looking at the possibility of starting kindergarten, we were asked to, in fact, try to find out the value of Bartlett School, whether or not it was appropriate to continue to utilize it as a school. It was worth far more at that time to the school district and the town as a school than it was for any other purpose. As someone has mentioned, there's a limited footprint. It really doesn't lend itself to much other than a school. That was the first thing. The second is My daughter, who is now a freshman in college, was in the portable classroom at Maple Avenue in 4th grade. So Tracy, my daughter, I guess got to not go to Mountain View in the 4th grade, got to go to a portable classroom, but it has served its purpose. It's been there for a long time. We need to move on. In terms of the red herring, part of the interesting part about today is that we really don't vote anything forward. We simply allow it to go to the ballot. My concern is the red herring that the area agreement may become, and I would just like to connect the dots a little bit. In order for Dunbarton or New Boston to take their children from 7th through 12th grade somewhere else, they have to make a huge leap in a choice. If we are indeed $2,500 below the state average tuition, it would be a 25% or more per child cost for those in New Boston and Dunbarton to send their children somewhere else. And that would be only if they were sending them somewhere else where it was a state average tuition. I will guarantee you, Hopkinton, Bow, Bedford are far more than the state average tuition. So that would mean that people in Dunbarton and New Boston, like you, would be standing up and saying, yes, I'm going to vote to increase my taxes per child by more than 25% to get something else. Remember what we started today with. Our high school students, results are what's important. Results at Goffstown Preschool are currently exceptional. Thank you.
I don't recall. Okay. There's one outstanding question that's going to squiggle oil that Mr. Coffey will respond to.
Mrs. Romaine asked what the classrooms were going to be used for. And yes, we are looking to get rid of the portables. We will be repurposing the portables, the plan is to bring them on campus here. We currently have a vocational program that takes place off-site that we're looking to bring on campus. So the portables will continue to be used just in a different capacity. But to the elementary schools, yes, we're going to eliminate the need for the portables. We are also looking to have a dedicated smart room as well as art and music. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've gone through this enough. I don't want to cut anybody off, but if not, if anybody has questions, I'd like to move on. So, seeing no further questions, we will leave Article 2 and move on to Article 3. Article 3. Passage of this article shall override the motion to restrict reconsideration made by Jane Hammond, by George Fuller. All those in Fullerton, I'm sorry, all those. Yeah, I know these people for what, 30 years, and I can't remember the name. Oh well. All those in favor of the motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Normally, I wouldn't let somebody interrupt me during the presentation the next time, but considering who it was, I'm committed. Passage of this article shall override this Article 3, the 10% limitation imposed on this appropriation due to the non-recommendation of the Budget Committee, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,865,576,000, parentheses, gross budget, for the purpose of developing an athletic complex at Goffstown High School to include a complete track and field, artificial turf surfaces, lights and field seating, and for the purpose of renovating and expanding the Goffstown High School Dr. Craig Heber Auditorium, and for costs incidental and related to the foregoing purposes, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $2,809,580,000, I don't think I said that right, $2,809,580 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33. And to authorize the school district officials to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Furthermore, to see if the district will raise and appropriate the balance of $55,996 for the purpose of addressing the first-year debt service obligation to be raised by taxation. This appropriation is in addition to our warrant article number 4, the operating budget. Does somebody on the school board wish to move that? Diane McCarthy moves to bring it forward. Is there a second? Jennifer Thoreau seconds it. Okay, it's brought forward discussion. Now, a member of this committee that's studying this, Mike Sheeran, is here. Oh, Ken is going to? Oh, okay, he's off the hook. I'm sorry. What I was going to say, sometimes there are people from out of town who live in other towns, or staff who are on a particular committee, or our professional staff. As a rule, I let them speak unless this legislative body chooses not to. Unfortunately, we've saved from having to deal with it here. So, are you going to talk first?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kent Nolan. First thing I'd like to say is I spent the morning with a group of students out in Londonderry High School participating in a contest talking about the Constitution of the United States of America and relating that to our responsibilities as citizens. And New Hampshire has a very unique way of handling its public policy and handling the way we discuss and do things in this state. And this is a very fair indication of how involved we are as a community. And for that, I applaud all of you for coming out this morning and participating in this conversation regarding our upcoming warrant articles and our budget. It's important to remember that when we talk about our education of our students, it's not simply a matter of dollars and cents. A lot of it comes into, what comes into question, part of that question is the commitment of the people involved in that education, the administrators, many of whom are here today, the teachers, the school boards who come out and take their time, the budget committees who work on all the dollars and cents and the background and trying to do all the due diligence where we come forth with a product once a year. And it's important to remember that the quality is not necessarily something that can be tangibly held or seen or felt. When you look around this auditorium, you see the successes we've had as a result of athletics, student athletics. When you're in the auditorium where we usually hold these meetings, it's a wonderful place to have a public gathering and to celebrate the talents and the hopes and aspirations of our children as they come through our school system through art. And these are all important considerations. And having said that, I'm speaking to this article today in part to convey to you the importance that I have placed in my entire life on athletics and academics. And I'll just share a funny story to you. The first time I ever saw a football field without a track around it was when I was an assistant coach at Merrimack High School back in the early 1990s. I grew up in South Florida. Every school football field had a track. Every high school had lights. Some high schools sat between 5,000 and 8,000 people. I played in a stadium when I was in 8th grade in front of 15,000 people in an exhibition football game. And I've never forgotten that feeling. And many student athletes, be it at the 9th grade level, going through college, never forget that feeling. It's an important feeling, and it's something that engages them and keeps them in school, and it's also a large part of what the community feels in supporting the commitment to these programs and to that part of the quality education. To give you a little history on what we're looking at today and why we're talking about this item. We're asking for permission to raise this fund, this amount of money, to develop an athletic complex through renovation and also expanding the Craig Heber Auditorium. We currently have a track and field team that cannot host a meet. We have a school of thousands of children, and they've got to travel for every meet to another school or another location to host their meets. We have an auditorium that is in need of renovation. The last time, it was originally constructed in 1972, and the last major renovation was for a seating replacement, which was completed in 1990. And I believe Americans with Disability Act had something to do with that, and it's also something we're considering now. This amount of money, this fund, will go to install an athletic field that can be used year-round, night or day, by every one of our students, and can be used without consideration of letting the grass heal, replanting the grass, clearing fields, and it will add to, I think, the quality of education and experience that our students have here when they get to the high school. It's also a source of community pride. Now, this theater renovation will include construction of an external storage structure adjacent to the theater, which is replacing a facility that was used and was damaged by weather. I'm not sure if Mike is the only member of the co-curricular and athletic support team here, but if any of them would like to speak to specifics of this, if Mike, if you would like to come up and speak to any specifics once questions come in, I would invite, as the moderator mentioned earlier, he would be able to speak to this because I'm not a member of this committee. So I would ask the moderator to allow Mr. Sheeran to address any specific questions regarding this article. Thank you very much.
I had this thought on my own that if there are any committee members who want to address this, I'll give them the opportunity, but it wasn't because a member of the school board thought that should happen. Mr. Sheeran in particular, if you wish to, you may because of your involvement, but you don't have to. While he's coming down, if there are other people who have questions, if you want to come down, you may, but we'll give you a chance afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Mike Sheeran. I'm a resident of Dunbarton, 334 Stark Highway North, and I have been a member of the CAS committee for a number of years. The committee previous to that was called the Stadium Committee, which people may have heard of in the past. I think you've done a good job of outlining the major pieces of this warrant article and what it includes. Specifically, the passage of this article would address for the theater permanent storage needs, replacement of seating. As I understand it right now, they're probably in the range of 25 seats that are unusable. There are a number of others that are questionably safe. And I'd invite you to walk around the theater and take a look for yourself. Also upgraded lighting and sound, and then a number of safety improvements. For those of you that don't know or haven't made yourself available for one of the performances there, you'll find that students build sets, and things of that nature in the hallways, and it is a safety concern. With regard to the athletic complex, we're looking at a 400-meter synthetic track that would be NHIA approved for competition. A multi-purpose synthetic turf field for use by really any of the outdoor sports, sports lighting, seating, and minimal storage facilities as well. Mr. Moderator?
Thank you. Are there any questions on this article? Yes.
Phil Kendall. I guess I had three questions. We talked about the benefits of the field and everything else. I guess I had, would there be a decreased cost in field maintenance if this was to pass? Would there also be a decrease in busing costs since we're saying that everything has to be bussed out? Being part of another sports team, there's always fees when you go to a visiting field. Would we get fees, offsetting fees for incoming teams?
Okay, thank you. Are there any other specific questions we should ask while they're assembling? I'll recognize these two people and then the school board can respond. Yes, ma'am.
Mary Downs again. Very quick question. What's the breakdown between the two projects in terms of cost?
Okay. Mr. Lockwood.
About 25 years ago,
Mr. Lockwood, tell us again who you are.
Darrell Lockwood, 246 Kennedy Road. About 25 years ago, when the current track was built, it was a joint project between the school district and the town. And I'm wondering if this project is a little bit like the same. We put it in your budget, but are other entities going to be able to use these facilities? Will there be younger children who are able to use the fields? Will there be community activities that are allowed to use the renovated auditorium? Is this really a community action as opposed to a high school budget item? Is my question.
Thank you. Gentlemen, while they're assembling their answers, might as well have them on.
Morris Demers, Tanager Road. Has any thought been given to a little bit of free enterprise here? For example, auctioning off the naming rights of the athletic complex to offset either part or all of the renovation of the track. I noticed, for example, at Sullivan Arena at St. Anselm, all of a sudden they're now selling ad space on the boards. It's that all around. This is probably very nice, but money.
Okay, good, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, I'll let the school board respond, or the committee to the extent it has the information.
So this is what happens. Everybody asks a lot of questions, and I try to remember. Mr. Kendall, you asked about the cost savings. Was saving money for busing. Yes, of course, we will. If we are able to host track meets, we are going to be saving money for transportation costs because there will be less. Artificial turf is, as I understand, less expensive to maintain than grass, between the reseeding, the mowing, the maintenance, the water, the aeration. So yes on that. You had a third question. Fees, and yes, the offsetting fees, and I would say likely. I can't say hands down yes, but I would say it's very likely. It's a possibility, for sure. The breakdown, yes. The theater is $500,000 of that bond, and we're talking in rough numbers, and the track and field is the remainder. And as far as the community being able to use our facilities, yes, our facilities can. This is, our community does. They use the theater, and we do share our fields with Parks and Rec and with the greater community. Oh, that's right. Currently, selling ad space is against our school district policies. So certainly, or naming the field, that's all against school district policies. So certainly if we were to pursue that option, we would need to be changing our policies accordingly. Got it? All right.
Anybody else who, yes, and then Ms. Sharon had a comment.
Elizabeth DeBrule. Since Dunbar and New Boston, if I understand this correctly, would they be contributing to the cost of this project? Or the amount that's on the ballot, is it the total amount of the project then minus? Has that amount been subtracted yet, I guess? I'm trying to get to a real figure of what that would cost.
Okay, let me give them a chance to answer. Well, Mr. Chair, did you have something first, and then we'll... Okay. I know, I keep it suspense.
Mike Sheeran, a member of the CAS committee again. To the question from Mr. Kendall about income opportunities, Mr. Moderator, we have on CAS talked about that a number of times. I do think there are a number of income opportunities related to use of the field. And I can give you one example. I'm also the president of the Goffstown Grizzlies Lacrosse Club. We pay approximately $2,000 per year just to bus our student athletes in the early season when we can't get on the field over to SNHU or to New England College in Henniker. We budget for that every year, and we'd certainly like to keep that money right here at home. And I know that other booster clubs, I'm sure, would be willing to contribute some of the income that they raise toward maintenance of the field and other things that help offset costs.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, sorry to hold you back. Are you ready to?
Yes. These bonds, that's the total amount, but it is shared via tuition. They would help contribute to those costs via tuition.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christina Martin. I live on Ashlar Drive. I just have one question and then one comment. I'm hearing all the savings that people have kind of talked about a little bit. I wonder if we could put together some sort of projected savings amount. That way it offsets the total. I don't know if that's something you guys could do or not. The other thing is, Goffstown now has an energy committee, and I just wonder if maybe they could help with, these types of projects. There's lighting and things like that. There's programs out there that where if you have energy efficiency lighting, you can receive grants and funds and things like that. So I would encourage you to reach out to the committee, which I'm a member of.
Oh, sorry, we didn't give you a name. Christine Martin?
Yes, Christina Martin.
Christina. Anybody else have questions on this? Ms. McCarthy, do you have anything else you want to say? You don't have to tell it to us.
No, sorry, just to answer that question. We're always happy to provide as much information as we can to help people get the information they need. And as for collaboration, we're always open to collaboration.
Mr. Person, I don't recognize me. I can't remember his name now.
Scott Gross. Okay, for the common theme of the tuitioning districts, it's my understanding that the tuitioning districts, even if they were to leave Goffstown, would still have to pay the remainder of the bond payments that we do. If this vote were to pass, would they, and they were to leave 2 or 3 years from now, would they then have to still pay their share?
A very specific question, Mr. Eaton, while they're pondering.
Alan Yaden, 82 Hillcrest Road. As a member of the planning board, we are currently working on an energy policy for the town master plan that we hope will be completed in the next few months. And as part of that will be some recommendations as to how it can be implemented into town facilities. And secondly, on a comical note, I hope you address the access on Wallace Road through your new sports park.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm going to turn back then to the school board and hope to wrap up this discussion.
The access to Wallace Road issue was in the budget. It is no longer in the budget. It was certainly the intent to address that. And as for Mr. Gross's question, that is a legal question. I'm not comfortable answering right now. I'm super happy. We don't have legal counsel here. I can tell you that both Dunbarton and New Boston were notified of the bond as we were required to do so in the timely fashion. But the second portion of your question, I prefer to refer to legal. Thank you.
I will note that I work out the YMCA with the school district attorney. We discussed this meeting ahead of time. We concluded there's not going to be any need for him to come. I will now delightfully tell him he should have been here at the answer to that question. Sorry. Anybody else on this article? Seeing none, we'll close this discussion and move to Article 5. Okay, motion has been made by Kendall to restrict reconsideration. Is there a second to the motion to restrict reconsideration? Mr. Sorry. Did you in front? Did you have your hand up? No, this lady was second. Well, you're not on the record yet, so what's your name? Okay, that'll be the second. Chillow. Yeah, all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move to Article 5. Shall the school district accept the provision of RSA 195-A as amended, providing for the amendment to the agreement for the area schools located in Goffstown to serve grades 7 through 12 from the school districts of Dunbarton and New Boston, in accordance with the provisions of the plan on file with the district clerk. Ms. McKinnon, are you moving this article? Okay, Jenny McKinnon moved it. Hank, are you second? Hank Boyle seconded. Jenny, are you speaking to this? I recognize Jenny McKinnon.
This warrant, this article will be on all 3 towns' ballots. 3 representatives from each town got together and we reviewed the area agreement, as we have to do by law 2 years before the expiration of the agreement. Through our reviewing process, an agreement was not made finalized agreement was not made for the area agreement. So what this basically does is extend the agreement for one more year to all three communities, to give all three towns the due diligence to study and come up with an agreement that will benefit and be agreeable to all. There wasn't any adverse opinions, there wasn't any disagreements going on. It was basically due to the economic environment and towns feeling that they really needed to look and do their constituents' due diligence because of the length of an area agreement, which is 10 years. We just would like to extend this out, and the new expiration date will be June 30th, 2015, and it will be the agreement as it exists now. There's no changes that have been made. So basically our current will just go out one more year to give everyone time to look at it and come to an agreement.
Are there any questions on Article 5? Yes.
Dan Cloutier. My question is, what are the ramifications of if this does not pass?
Okay, before the answer, are there any other questions that we can tee up for them? See none. Oh, wait. Mr. Gross, and then we'll continue.
Scott Gross, Range Road. My comment is that I think the community of Goffstown and the Goffstown School Board should send a very strong message of support to Dunbarton and New Boston that we want to maintain this 30-plus year relationship of sending their students to our middle and our high school. Not only is it a good thing for all three communities, because we are able to offset our expenses with revenues from those two towns, but as you can see, we're getting a hell of a good education to those, we're giving a good education to those students at a greatly reduced price. So I would encourage people in our community to talk to their neighbors in Dunbarton and New Boston to make sure that when they speak to their school board reps, that they encourage those folks in those communities to support that continued relationship. And it's not just a financial relationship, it's a community relationship. It's a relationship which we have seen in sporting events like Tri-Town Soccer and softball and all of our performances in the auditorium. We have a very strong bond with these three towns, and that should remain. It's good for all three towns, and we as the Goffstown community really should stress that.
In answer to your question, if this article doesn't pass in any one of the towns, then it doesn't pass at all. And we would be at our agreement with the agreement ending in 2014. And it would come back on the ballot again. We will continue to review it, we'll continue to come up with the agreement, and it'll be back on the ballot.
Okay, are there any other questions on Article 5? Seeing none, as we have in the past, when a state senator comes, we give him a couple of minutes to address the group. I'm going to extend that courtesy to Lou if you wish to. I know you have to leave, and these people want to leave, so I'll caution you to do it quickly, but we're going to extend it the courtesy because we appreciate it when our state senator can attend our meetings in Goffstown. It's nice to be recognized.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and members of the panel, school board members, for your contribution. I think it's a great situation for me to see and for me to participate in on a yearly basis. See so many people come out who care about and are concerned about the education of their children, which is fundamental. It's fundamental to the economic prosperity of our state and really our country. And to see you participate and talk about these things is important. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for the last 50 years. I currently teach at St. Anselm College. I teach at the Institute of Politics. I believe strongly in education. I think it's so important. But the most important thing is for you to participate, because without your participation and without your support, good things can't happen. So thank you very much for coming out. Thanks for honoring me by allowing me to address you, and I hope all of you have a great American Day, and go Pats. Thank you.
Lou took away my closing line. Before you do, I just want to say, I forgot to say at the outset, the school musical follows this, and I always push it. They had it in the fall, they threw me off, but their drama production is February 16th, 17th, and 18th. You really should go if you can. I want you to take a minute, just look around. One of the things that makes towns work, or any group, is a diversity of opinion civilly presented by a breadth of people who have some common connection. If you look at studies on groupthink, organizations that work, the MIT lab that developed all those products in World War II, a bunch of different views, a bunch of different people, they came together. Look around, you see a range of ages here, a range of views. I commend you on the quality of your discussion, the civility of it. That's pleasant to see as a change. I appreciate your contributions. So thank you. See you next year. In the moderator world, there's a question about, do we adjourn? Do we dissolve? I'd accept a motion to end the meeting and go home. Somebody like to make that motion? Mr. Lydia, do you have something else to come before that? Okay, before we do that, Mr. Lydia.
Thank you. Dan Cloutier, Chairman of the Budget Committee. If permissible by the moderator, I'd like to let everybody know there will be a public meeting of the Budget Committee at the table to our left, your right, at the conclusion of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I should have said any of the further business come with the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for the moderator. Are you aware that 56 years ago today, Hank and Marie Boyle were married?
Anybody else? Any other further business? Then, seeing none, I'd entertain the motion to end the meeting and go home. Somebody like to make that motion? Mr. Love? Has it been moved? Oh, okay. All those in favor then signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions or motion carries. Thank you.